So every fisherman watching this video has missed a fish at some point in time, or better yet, had a fish miss your bait. Well, what do you do in that case? Do you try to reel in and recast over there? Do you recast the same bait? Most oftentimes those fish are already kind of wise to what they just missed, or they're smart enough to know they just got lost on a bait, so they're not going to eat that same bait. So it's important to have a follow-up bait. And what that means is you have another bait standing by that you can pick up to catch those fish. Typically it has a high hookup ratio and it's more of a finesse technique. Well, today I want to break down a few of my favorite follow-up baits for some of the different techniques that I'm going to go over, so that way you can be better prepared to have those opportunities that would have been missed become successful, capitalized opportunities. So let's dive into it right now. So most oftentimes what it is you miss a fish, whether it's on a top water, a spinner bait, any kind of moving bait is what often happens, and it's most oftentimes not a miss. What it is the fish rejects it at the last second. So those fish recognize something's wrong right as they're coming up to it, and they just turn away at the last second. And that could be the same as, say you're reeling a bait in and you get it right up to the boat and there's a fish chasing it right in. Whether that's a crankbait, a spinner bait, a chatterbait, and you get it right next to the boat. We've all had it happen, and there's a fish right behind it. So there's a few baits that I want to talk about that I drop down there for that. The first ones we're going to talk about is what happens when a fish misses your top water. So there's a couple different baits that I like in this particular situation, and there's really two. And that's going to be a jerkbait and a fluke. Those are the two best baits when a fish is already up chasing and it misses your bait, or you miss the fish. It's already hunting a bait fish, and that's what in its mind it's going after. And these two baits can really get the job done for you. Most oftentimes I lean toward a jerkbait, but a fluke is also a great option because it has that natural stick bait like fall where you have a high hookup ratio because you have a single hook in it most times. So you can kind of capitalize on with that. A jerkbait for me is just a flashy in-your-face bait that if they're already up and looking around, it's just a great bait to get their attention, and you have 9 hook points on there. And for me, it's a high hookup ratio bait just with the setups I have. And again, I'll have all this stuff linked down below with the rod and reels that I like to pair these baits with, so that way you guys will have all that information as well. But if I'm throwing a topwater or a spinner bait or anything like that, or even if I miss one on a fluke, I'll throw a jerk bait. So those are the baits that I keep in mind for that opportunity. And probably one of the best follow-up baits out there on the market is a Senko. And the one that I reach for the most is that Strike King shimmy stick. It just has a great slow fall rate, which is what I like. A Gary Yamamoto Senko is also a great option, but that Senko just does a great job at being a high land percentage bait. And really just, if you get a Senko around a fish, most oftentimes they're going to eat it. It doesn't matter whether they're smallmouth, spotted bass, largemouth, they usually always eat it. So if I'm up shallow and a fish blows up on a bait, say it's on a whopper plopper, comes up and misses it, I might throw a Wacky Rig Senko over there. Or say if I'm throwing a spinner bait, or if I'm flipping and I miss a fish, I might throw a Senko in there as a follow-up bait. Anytime I have a fish around an isolated piece of cover that I miss, I'm going to throw a Senko in there just because it's always a great option. So I pretty much always have one of these tied on the deck. It doesn't matter what I'm throwing. If I see a fish miss a bait, even if I can watch Panoptics and see a fish follow it in, I'm going to throw a Senko over there to try to get that fish to eat it. It's always a great option to have on deck because it has such a high land percentage and has a high percentage of fish eating it that it's just always a great option to have one on the deck. So the first couple are geared toward topwater and more largemouth. The last two that I'm going to talk about are more geared towards smallmouth or even clear high reservoir largemouth. And the two baits that I'm going to talk about are a Ned Rig and a Dropshot. Because if you've ever reeled a bait up and had a fish right hot on its tail but it doesn't eat it, and then all of a sudden it tries to drift back down, these baits get right down there and they catch them super fast. So the Ned Rig, I typically run that in the deal or green pumpkin, but that Z-Man Ned Rig, man, it really gets bit. And then a Dropshot is just another high percentage bait that I can get down there super fast to get over top of those fish. So if you're looking on your down imaging and you can see them stacked up or you can see them below you, you can get that bait down there super fast if they're going right back down to the bottom. And most oftentimes you can meet them down there at the bottom. So I'll have some baits linked down below that I like for a drop shot, but those are just two baits that they just do a phenomenal job at really getting those fish to eat it because they're finessier presentations that do a good job at having a high eat ratio. Those fish, when they get down there, they usually eat it because it's just a different presentation and it's a different look for them. So like I said, a Senko or a stick bait is probably the most popular with it. For more information on that, check out this video I'm going to have linked up here where I break down my favorite stick baits and if you're fishing the right stick bait for your situation. It includes underwater footage and it'll really kind of open your eyes as to what stick baits you should be throwing in different situations. So thank you guys so much for watching. God bless, and I hope y'all take care.